And now we're warned. Welcome, everyone, to this new edition of Message of Hope. And today I have the pleasure to be with Linda Ford, who is a confidence coach and also an author. So maybe you can show your little book.
Sure. It's called Women in Confidence, The Truth About the Lies We Tell Ourselves. I actually co-wrote this with another coach her name is Lana Bastianutti. So it's a real tell-all, Martine. This is like full of our own personal stories of how we struggled with insecurity, in our work, in our relationships, and in our bodies. We all know that one, right, as women.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I know many coach or hypnotherapists now. They have lots of trainings, but they haven't started yet. So,
yeah.
So, welcome.
Thank you,
Linda.
Martine. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really honored. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you the famous question. And the question is, how does having this understanding, how does that help you navigate different events in your life, or stress, or COVID, or whatever shows up? So how does that help you?
Yeah, I know you like to keep these conversations short and sweet. So I'm going to share a couple of things that have really been game changers for me since coming across this understanding. And the first one is just kind of knowing how we humans really work. And what I mean by that is just understanding how this equipment up here works has been a huge game changer. And knowing how the mind, the brain works, because it's this amazing computer that we have. And like most people, I went through most of my life not really understanding the mechanics of it, how it was actually operating. And so when you know how something is working, and you fully get to know, like you really understand how it's like there were so many things I never knew about how my mind was working. That really changes everything. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. I used to think that everything that I thought had huge significance, that it was true, that I had to lean in and really understand and question and analyze. And so that, as you can imagine, it's quite an exhausting way to live, right? And so when I actually came to this understanding and realized that, wow, thought is just coming through all the time, and it's neutral, and it's really about how we activate or get cozy with certain thoughts or not. Michael Neal, who we know is one of our teachers in this understanding, he gives a wonderful metaphor of, if you've got a teacup and you put a tea bag in it, right? The tea bag can just sit there, do nothing, until you add hot water to it. And when you add the hot boiling water to the tea bag, what happens? It comes alive, right? Gets activated. And it's the same. It's a beautiful metaphor, actually. I love this. Don't you, Martine? It's kind of like explains, if I have a thought that comes through and I get seduced by it, thoughts can be very seductive. I can kind of overthink about, well, what does it mean? Should I worry about it? If I get really cozy with it, it can take us into some neighborhoods, dare I say, that we don't really want to be in, And it can also do the opposite, take us to some really good neighborhoods. So really just understanding how all this was operating, and to kind of see it with more of a lightness, not take it so seriously. And that if I just leave certain thoughts alone, they actually will move on of their own accord. Beautiful. What a game changer, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
So that's one of the first things. The other one about the brain was that, it's actually working on our behalf when it tries to scare us. It's meant to do that. It's its job, right? Because if I'm in a bad neighborhood and I'm walking down an alley and someone comes out and, holds a gun to my head, immediately I get into fight or flight. The brain does that for us, right? We don't even have to think about it. But that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to alert us whenever there's anything going on. But it also does it when we make change in our life. So if you've been traveling to work every day for the last 10 years, the same route, and then suddenly you go a different way, your brain is going to say, hey, no, we don't do things this way, right? It's going to have a hissy fit. And that's just what it does. And so to be able to really understand that, remind yourself, oh, there's the brain just doing its job. Game changer.
And also the brain doesn't know, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is not. So when
Exactly.
you're thinking all up your little scenarios, it doesn't know that you're thinking up all those scenarios. It will give you the same feeling as if it's happening now. And the special
Exactly.
effect of a consciousness is pretty good. So it feels real,
It
even though it's all
does.
imagined.
Yeah. And, I was going to say something else. You reminded me of something and it's just slipped away. But yeah, it's kind of akin. Oh, I know what it was. It's like if you don't know how to drive your vehicle properly, like you don't know how to use the gears and you just can't get out. You only think you're in second gear. You only have two gears. It's kind of like that. You will navigate yourself through life, but there'll be this kind of odd feeling like you can never really go fast enough. But then when you know how the equipment of the gears work, it changes your life. So you have a whole different experience of driving. So in the same way, when we understand how this works, that we can get so much more out of our lives and not get so burdened when anxiety hits us. And it does, it will, because that's just who we
Yeah,
are.
we're human beings. So
Yeah,
it's like, I know all gravity. I know about gravity. It
exactly.
makes life easier. So I know I don't have to jump off a building. But if I still can drop stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's another one I want to share with you before we end this. And that is, I just love this phrase that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And let me explain what I mean by that. Most of my life, just like everybody else, I've gone through life thinking that the thing that I see in the mirror every day, this body, this form of Linda, is the real me. I mean, I used to, we all do. We identify with
We
it.
grew up
Yeah,
learning that.
we identify with it so much because it's so compelling. It moves, it feels, it's got sensations. And so I really went through life thinking that, putting a lot of emphasis on this form. And then I'd throw in a little spiritual life. But when I came to this understanding, that kind of got flipped. And I'm beginning to see more because, I've been in this body now for over 60 years, and I do not look the same that I looked when I was 10, 20, 30, 40. I've had the experience of having to see just how I have been changing physically and how I've also been changing up here. But throughout all of that journey, I've also noticed that there has been something that's constant, that's moved with me as my body's changing. It's that constant thing that's just always been there. And of course, that is our spiritual side to us. And so why is this helpful? Well, we all know, we don't like to think about this, but we all know that this body is going to wither. It's going to die. We see it all around us. It's just part of the nature of the body, right? It's part of nature's having the same experience.
Hmm.
And so when you can kind of come at life and just remind yourself when you're in times of strife, when you're going through hard times, oh, just remember, oh, that's not who I really am, this form. You know, I'm so much more. And that part of me will never be damaged or die or decay. It's always that constant. So I like to call it, I have a term, I call it it's the big self and little self. And so I'm going through life to be able to go through life acknowledging that there is a little self, right? And there's this big self, and they work beautifully together. And so I find that very comforting to know that that's who I really am. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I call it a little Buddha inside, from
Yes,
the story of the
yes.
temple in Thailand that,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Also, there's another way I like to describe it too. It's like that, it's like a parent and a child. So there's a parent part of us that's always traveling with us, taking care of us, right? Guiding us. And yeah, so whatever works for you, if you like to think, oh, where's my parent part of me? Let me parent my little self. And that that has changed everything. It doesn't mean I don't feel fear or anxiety, because I do. But then I remind myself. It's about just reminding. Oh, just remember that's who you really. Here's who you really are. This part of me. This is just a vehicle traveling through life.
Yeah, we're going to get caught up. I mean, Jack Prensky wrote, "No, seduced by consciousness." So we're going to
Yeah,
be caught up at one point or another. That's just part of the game. But knowing, so, and that knowing means that we can come back to our center
yeah,
more
yeah. And
quickly.
yeah, the word seduced is good, which is why I used it too, because it's very seductive. Thought is very seductive. This body is seductive, because it is compelling. It does feel deeply. So, but like you're saying, just to be aware of that's going on. And unfortunately, we haven't been trained to kind of think that way about ourselves. And so, when you first come to this understanding and you kind of begin to see something, it can take a while. It's just practice. Just keep reminding yourself that's how this works. That's who I really am. And the more you just remind yourself, the more you'll begin to live within that. And that's worked for me beautifully.
And it comes from here and eventually here. And that's
Yeah,
where it makes all the difference.
exactly. So I
Well,
hope that is offering your readers, your people who view these videos, I hope that helps them in some way.
thank you for your wisdom. And if people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, you can find me at my website, which is lindafordcoaching.com. And I have a very active blog there, and I do videos. So, and I'm always on Facebook.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you, Martine. Thank you for all you do as well. Thank you for this series.
Thank you.